My daughter walked into that courtroom holding a broken tablet, and within 5 minutes, she destroyed the man who tried to destroy me. Welcome to Tea and Payback, where the tea is hot, the secrets are messy, and karma always finds her way home. Before I go on, just a quick reminder. I share new life stories every day. If you enjoy them, subscribing and liking the video would mean a lot to me. Now sit down, pour yourself a cup of tea, let's continue. My name is Sienna, I'm 32 years old, and I need to tell you about the day my 7-year-old daughter brought my entire world back from the edge of oblivion. But to understand that moment, you have to understand how close I came to losing everything, how brilliantly my husband orchestrated my destruction, and how the one thing he underestimated was the little girl he was so eager to take from me. It started on a Tuesday morning that felt like any other morning in our house. I'd been awake since 5:30, moving through the kitchen in near silence. The pre-dawn darkness felt heavy, like it always did in that house. Over the years, I'd learned to exist like a ghost in my own home. My husband, Darius, preferred it that way. He'd made that clear early in our marriage, though back then he'd phrased it differently. "You're so graceful when you move quietly," he'd said. I'd thought it was romantic. I didn't realize he was training me to disappear. The coffee had to be ready at exactly 6 o'clock. Not 5:59. Not 6:01. Exactly 6. Breakfast had to be hot but not steaming, because steaming food suggested I'd just finished cooking it, and he preferred to believe the meal had been waiting for him, that I'd timed it perfectly to his schedule. The morning paper had to be placed to the left of his plate, folded precisely in thirds so he could read it without having to unfold it completely. These weren't rules he'd ever stated outright. They were patterns I'd learned through years of small corrections, disappointed sighs, and the cold silence that followed any deviation. When Darius came downstairs that morning, I'd already checked everything twice. His favorite mug, the navy blue one with the silver rim, was filled with coffee at exactly the right temperature. His shirt was pressed with crisp lines down the sleeves. His briefcase was by the door, containing the files he'd asked me to organize the night before. The eggs were cooked to his preference. The toast was lightly buttered on one side only, and the orange juice was freshly squeezed. He sat down without looking at me. I stood near the counter, waiting for any request, any acknowledgement. The kitchen clock ticked loudly in the silence. Outside, birds were beginning their morning songs, but inside our house, there was only the sound of Darius chewing and the rustle of newspaper pages. "The eggs are cold," he said flatly, pushing the plate away after one bite. My stomach dropped. "I'm sorry. I can make fresh ones right now. It'll only take." "Don't bother." He stood, smoothing his already perfect tie. "I'll grab something at the office." "But I made your favorite." I timed everything. He didn't respond. He simply grabbed his briefcase and walked past me like I was furniture, like I was part of the kitchen decor he no longer noticed. The front door closed with a soft click that somehow felt louder than a slam. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the rejected breakfast. The eggs weren't cold. I'd tested them myself. They were perfect. But somewhere along the way, I'd learned that Darius's complaints were never really about the food or the coffee or the way I folded the newspaper. They were about control, about keeping me uncertain, always scrambling, always apologizing for things that weren't actually wrong. Our daughter, Ivy, came running down the stairs moments later, her school uniform slightly askew, her hair still messy from sleep. At 7 years old, she was all energy and light, the only brightness in that cold house. "Good morning, Mommy." She threw her arms around my waist, and for a moment, everything felt bearable again. "Good morning, sweetheart. Let me fix your hair before school." As I braided Ivy's hair at the kitchen table, I heard Darius's car start in the driveway. He'd forgotten something and come back inside. When he saw Ivy, his entire demeanor changed. The cold mask melted away, replaced by something that almost looked like genuine warmth. "There's my princess." He scooped Ivy up, spinning her around. Her delighted laughter filled the kitchen. Daddy's going to pick you up from school today. We'll do something special. Really? Can we get ice cream? Anything you want, princess. He kissed her forehead, shot me a look I couldn't quite read, and left again. That brief moment of warmth toward Ivy made everything worse somehow. It proved he was capable of affection, of attention. He just chose not to give any of it to me. I spent the rest of the morning in my usual routine, clearing the table, washing the dishes by hand because Darius said the dishwasher was too loud and wasteful, doing the laundry, folding each item exactly the way he preferred, vacuuming the carpets in a specific pattern so the lines looked uniform, dusting every surface in the house, including the tops of door frames that no one could see, but he occasionally checked. It sounds absurd when I list it out like that, but when you're in it, when you've been slowly conditioned over years, it doesn't feel absurd. It feels necessary. It feels like love, like trying to make your partner happy, like being a good wife. I'd given up my job as a graphic designer 6 years ago when Ivy was born. Darius had suggested it, framing it as a gift. You shouldn't have to work, Sienna. I make enough for both of us. Stay home, take care of our daughter, enjoy your life. At the time, it had seemed loving, generous even. I'd been exhausted from trying to balance a newborn with client deadlines. The idea of just focusing on Ivy had sounded like a dream. I didn't realize until much later that it was a cage. That by giving up my income, my professional identity, my independence, I'd handed Darius complete control. He managed all the money. He decided what we could afford. He gave me a monthly allowance for groceries and Ivy's school supplies, budgeted so precisely that there was never anything left over. When friends from my old job invited me to lunch, I had to decline. No money for a restaurant meal. When I wanted to take a class or buy new clothes, I had to ask Darius for permission, for extra funds. And the answer was almost always the same. We can't afford luxuries right now. I'm the only one working, remember? By the time I realized what had happened, I was too deep in it to find a way out. No recent work experience. No savings of my own. No financial safety net. I was completely dependent on a man who looked at me like I was a servant he regretted hiring. That afternoon, I picked Ivy up from school like always. She chattered happily about her day, about the gold stars she'd earned, about the art project she was working on. I cherished these moments, driving with Ivy, listening to her talk about her small but significant world. It was the only time I felt like I still mattered to someone. When we arrived home, I was helping Ivy take off her shoes when I heard the motorcycle pull up. A courier in a bright uniform appeared at the door, holding a large, thick envelope. "Delivery for Sienna Caldwell," he said, shoving a clipboard toward me. I signed without thinking, accepted the envelope, and closed the door. Ivy had already run upstairs to change out of her uniform. I was alone in the entryway, holding this heavy envelope, feeling my hands start to shake even though I didn't yet know why. There was no return address, just the logo of a law firm in the upper right corner. Patterson and Associates. I'd never heard of them. I sat down on the living room sofa and opened the envelope with trembling fingers. The first page was stark white with bold black text at the top. Petition for dissolution of marriage. The words blurred together at first. I blinked, trying to focus, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Dissolution. Divorce. Darius was divorcing me. But that wasn't the worst part. As I read through the pages, each sentence felt like a physical blow. Darius wasn't just asking for a divorce. He was accusing me of being a failed wife and mother. The language was clinical and cruel, outlining my alleged failures in excruciating detail. Neglect of household duties. The petition cited repeated instances of me failing to maintain the home to an acceptable standard. It claimed the house was frequently dirty, meals were poorly prepared, and I'd created an unhygienic living environment for our daughter. Emotional instability. This section was longer, more detailed. It described me as prone to irrational outbursts, emotionally volatile, and unable to regulate my responses to normal daily stressors. It claimed these emotional issues had created a toxic environment for Ivy. Financial irresponsibility. The petition claimed I'd been recklessly spending marital funds on luxury items, that I'd depleted savings through careless purchases, and that I'd demonstrated no understanding of financial management or budgeting. Each accusation was a lie, but they were detailed lies, specific lies, the kind that sound convincing when written in legal language. And then I reached the demands section, and my heart stopped completely. Darius was demanding full physical and legal custody of Ivy. He was arguing that I was unfit to be a mother, that my emotional instability and neglectful behavior posed a risk to our daughter's well-being. He claimed he should be the sole custodial parent, with me receiving only supervised visitation rights, pending psychiatric evaluation. He wanted the house, the one we'd bought together, the one I'd turned into a home despite his coldness. According to the petition, since I'd contributed no income to the marriage, I had no claim to any marital property. He was asking for everything: the house, the cars, the savings accounts, the investment portfolios I didn't even know existed. According to these papers, I deserved nothing. I'd contributed nothing. I was nothing. I don't know how long I sat there, papers scattered around me on the sofa. Time seemed to stop. My ears were ringing. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped steel bands around my ribs and was slowly tightening them. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of mistake, some kind of cruel joke. But the paperwork was too official, too detailed. This had been planned, carefully, methodically, over a long period of time. I was still on the floor when I heard Darius's car pull into the driveway. It was only 3 p.m. He never came home this early. The front door opened. Darius stepped inside, and when he saw me slumped on the floor with the papers scattered around me, his expression didn't change. No surprise, no concern, no guilt. He'd known the papers were being delivered today. He'd come home early specifically for this moment. "What is this?" My voice came out broken, barely above a whisper. Darius took off his shoes with deliberate slowness. He hung his jacket on the coat rack. He loosened his tie. Only then did he walk toward me, his footsteps slow and measured. "Exactly what it looks like," he said calmly. "I'm done, Sienna. This marriage is over." "Done? What do you mean done? We have a daughter. We have a life together. We have nothing together." His voice was cold, factual. "I have a life. I have a career. I have assets. You have nothing. You've contributed nothing. You are nothing." The words landed like physical blows. "How can you say that? I gave up everything for this family. I take care of our home. I raise our daughter. You take care of nothing." He crouched down so he was eye level with me. This close, I could see something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not just coldness, but hatred. Pure, undiluted hatred. "You're a parasite, Sienna. You live off my income. You can barely keep this house clean. You're useless as a wife, and you're damaging our daughter with your instability." "That's not true. None of that is true. It's all true. And I have evidence. Photos. Financial records. Expert testimony." He smiled then, a chilling smile that made my blood run cold. "My lawyer has everything documented. Your neglect. Your spending. Your emotional problems." "I don't have emotional problems." "I don't. Really? Because the photos suggest otherwise. The credit card statements suggest otherwise. And most importantly," he leaned even closer, his breath hot on my face, "even your own daughter will testify against you." That statement punched through my chest and squeezed my heart. "No. Ivy loves me. She wouldn't. She'll tell the truth, Sienna. About how you're always crying. About how you ignore her when she needs you. About how she's scared of your moods." He stood up, smoothing his suit. "My lawyer says even a 7-year-old's testimony counts, especially when it confirms everything the expert witness observed." "Expert witness? What expert witness?" "Dr. Helena Moreau, child psychologist. She's been observing you with Ivy for months. In public places, naturally. Parks, shopping malls, school pickup. All perfectly legal. And her professional opinion? He shrugged with mock sympathy. You're unfit to be a mother. I felt like I was drowning. This is insane. You're lying. You're making all of this up. Making it up? He laughed, actually laughed. Everything is documented, Sienna. Photographs don't lie. Credit card statements don't lie. Expert witnesses don't lie. But you? He looked down at me with disgust. You've been lying to yourself for years, thinking you're a good mother, a good wife. You're neither. And soon, the court will agree with me. He walked toward the stairs, then paused and looked back at me one more time. Get a lawyer if you want. Waste whatever money you can scrape together. But you won't win. You'll lose everything. The house, the custody, all of it. And do you know why? He waited, forcing me to ask. Why? Because you have nothing, you are nothing, and soon, even Ivy won't remember what it was like to call you mom. He walked upstairs, leaving me crumpled on the floor surrounded by papers that legally defined my worthlessness. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those words. Unfit mother. Emotionally unstable. Contributed nothing. I spent hours sitting in Ivy's room, watching her sleep, memorizing every detail of her face. The way her eyelashes rested on her cheeks. The small scar on her chin from when she'd fallen off her bike 2 years ago. The way she clutched her stuffed rabbit even in sleep. What had Darius told her? What poison had he been feeding our daughter about me? When morning finally came, I was exhausted but wired with desperate energy. I had to fight this. I couldn't just give up. But as soon as I started thinking about fighting, I ran into the same impossible wall. Money. I needed a lawyer. But lawyers needed retainers, consultation fees, court costs. Where was I supposed to get that money? I grabbed my phone and opened the banking app, the joint account Darius and I shared. The one I'd assumed was our family emergency fund, untouched except for major expenses. The account that should have had at least a few $100,000 based on Darius's salary and our relatively modest lifestyle. I entered the password with shaking hands. The screen loaded. Current balance, $0. I stared at those numbers until they blurred. 0. Nothing. Gone. How was that possible? I opened the transaction history, scrolling frantically. What I found made me physically nauseous. Over the past 6 months, Darius had been systematically draining the account. Large transfers, $50,000 here, $70,000 there, all moved to an account number I didn't recognize. The final withdrawal had happened just 3 days ago, emptying the last remaining funds. He'd planned this. For months. While I'd been making his coffee and folding his laundry and trying to be a good wife, he'd been quietly stealing every dollar we had, moving it somewhere I couldn't access. I was completely trapped. No money. No job. No way to hire a lawyer to fight back. In desperation, I ran to our bedroom and opened my jewelry box. Maybe I could sell something, pawn it, get enough for at least a consultation with a lawyer. The box was empty. Not just empty of valuable pieces. Completely empty. The pearl earrings my grandmother had given me. The diamond pendant Darius had given me on our 5th anniversary. My mother's gold bracelet. Even my wedding ring, which I'd taken off last week to clean and had meant to put back on. All gone. He'd taken everything. Every possible asset I might have used to fight back. He'd systematically stripped me of any resources, any means of independence, any ability to defend myself. I collapsed on the bedroom floor and cried until I had no tears left. This wasn't just a divorce. This was annihilation. This was a carefully planned destruction of my entire existence. Hours later, after pulling myself together enough to function, I remembered my old college roommate, Jessica. She'd become a paralegal at a legal aid agency. I called her with trembling fingers, explained my situation between sobs. "Oh my God, Sienna," Jessica breathed. This is deliberate financial abuse. This is textbook coercive control. Can you help me? I don't have any money. I can't afford a real lawyer. I can't represent you myself, but I know someone who might help. His name is Malcolm Kane. He's a divorce attorney, has a small practice, not expensive like the big firms. He takes some pro bono cases, payment plans. He's good, Sienna. Really good. He actually cares. She gave me an address. A strip mall on the east side of town. Second floor above a dry cleaner. I had nothing to lose. The next morning, after taking Ivy to school, I took a cab there using the last $20 in my wallet. Attorney Malcolm Kane's office was exactly as Jessica had described it. Small, cramped, files stacked on every available surface. But when he looked up from his desk, his eyes were kind. "You must be Sienna," he said, gesturing to a worn chair across from his desk. "Jessica called me. Told me a bit about your situation. Why don't you tell me everything from the beginning?" So I did. I told him about the marriage, about giving up my job, about the gradual isolation and control. I told him about the divorce papers, the cruel accusations, the demands for custody and all assets. I told him about the emptied bank accounts and the stolen jewelry. Malcolm listened without interrupting, taking notes occasionally, his expression growing darker with each detail. When I finally finished, he removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "Sienna, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Your husband has been planning this for a very long time. This isn't just a divorce. This is a systematic destruction campaign. He's not trying to leave you. He's trying to erase you. Can you help me? Please. I don't care about the money or the house. I just want my daughter. I can't lose Ivy. We're going to fight," Malcolm said firmly. "But I need you to understand something. Your husband's attorney is Victor Ashford. I know him. He's expensive, he's ruthless, and he doesn't care about truth. He cares about winning. And your husband clearly has resources to fund a prolonged legal battle. What does that mean for me? It means this is going to be hard. Very hard. But that doesn't mean it's impossible." He opened a thick file folder. "Darius's legal team has already submitted their evidence to the court. Let me show you what we're up against." He spread papers across his desk. I leaned forward, dreading what I was about to see. The first items were photographs. My breath caught. They were photos of my house. My beautiful, carefully maintained house. Except in these photos, it looked like a disaster zone. The kitchen sink was overflowing with dirty dishes. The counters were covered in food stains. The floor had visible dirt and crumbs. The living room was chaos. Toys scattered everywhere. Cushions thrown haphazardly. Empty cups and plates on every surface. The laundry room showed mountains of dirty clothes piled so high they'd spilled onto the floor. "These aren't real," I said immediately. "I mean, they're real photos, but they're not representative. That was the week I had the flu. I was bedridden with a fever of 103 for 3 days straight. I could barely get out of bed. I asked Darius to handle things, but he said he was too busy with work. He told me not to worry, that the mess could wait until I recovered." Malcolm nodded. "And he photographed it, deliberately, while you were sick and unable to defend yourself or clean up. He set me up." "Yes. And juries, judges, they don't always consider context. They see photos like this, and they make assumptions." He flipped to the next section. Credit card statements. I saw a list of charges that made my head spin. Designer handbags from Prada and Gucci. Diamond jewelry from Tiffany. Expensive dinners at 5-star restaurants. Luxury spa treatments. Weekend stays at high-end hotels. The amounts were staggering. 5,000 here. 8,000 there. Some months showed spending of over $20,000. "I didn't buy any of these things," I said, my voice shaking. "This isn't me. I haven't bought new clothes in 2 years. I don't even own a designer handbag. But this is a credit card in your name." "Yes, an additional card on Darius's account. He gave it to me years ago, said to use it if I needed anything. But I rarely did. He actually used it more than I did. He'd take it with him, say his main card had reached its limit or he'd left it at the office. I trusted him." Malcolm's jaw tightened. "So he was using your additional card, making luxury purchases, building a paper trail that makes you look financially reckless." "Oh my God. The realization hit me like ice water. Every kindness, every time he gave me that card to make things easier, he was building a case against me. Exactly. And without receipts showing who actually made these purchases, without proof of where these items went, it's your word against documentary evidence. Can't we prove it? Can't we show I don't have any of these items he supposedly bought with my card? We can try. But Darius's lawyer will argue you sold them, gifted them, or hid them. It's hard to prove a negative. Malcolm moved to the next section, and his expression became even more grim. This is the most damaging piece of evidence, Sienna. The expert witness testimony. He slid a thick bound report across the desk. The cover read, Psychological Evaluation and Custody Recommendation, Minor Child Ivy Caldwell. Prepared by Dr. Helena Moreau, licensed child psychologist. My hands trembled as I opened it. The report was written in dense clinical language, filled with psychological terminology that sounded official and scientific. Dr. Moreau claimed to have conducted naturalistic observations of my interactions with Ivy over a 3-month period. She'd supposedly observed us at various public locations: a shopping mall, a neighborhood park, the grocery store, the school pickup area, all places where she could watch without me knowing, without my consent, without any ability for me to defend my actions or explain context. Her conclusions were devastating. Observation 1. Shopping mall, March 15th. Subject, mother, displayed inappropriate physical aggression toward minor child. Subject grabbed child's arm forcefully and yanked her backward while shouting. Child appeared frightened and began crying. Subject's response was to verbally berate child in public setting. This behavior indicates poor emotional regulation and potential for physical harm. I remembered that day instantly. We'd been walking through the mall, and Ivy had suddenly broken away from me, running toward what she thought was a pet store, but was actually heading straight for a down escalator. She was about to run right onto it, which could have caused a serious fall. I'd grabbed her arm and pulled her back in panic, my voice loud with fear. Ivy, stop. Be careful. She'd cried, not because I'd hurt her, but because she'd been startled. I'd immediately knelt down, hugged her, explained about the escalator danger. Within a minute, she was fine. But Dr. Moreau's report made it sound like I'd abused my daughter in public. Observation 2. Riverside Park, March 22nd. Subject displayed significant neglect of minor child. Subject was absorbed in mobile phone for extended period, approximately 15 minutes, while child played alone without supervision. When child fell from playground equipment, subject did not immediately notice. Upon noticing, subject's reaction was exaggerated and theatrical, suggesting emotional instability rather than genuine concern. Subject created a scene, potentially increasing child's distress rather than calmly addressing the situation. That observation was equally distorted. I'd been texting back and forth with Darius about the grocery list he'd demanded for a dinner party he was hosting. He'd sent me increasingly irritated messages when I didn't respond immediately, so I'd been trying to reply while keeping an eye on Ivy. She'd tripped while running, a normal childhood stumble, and I'd immediately rushed over. Yes, I'd been scared. Yes, I'd reacted strongly, because seeing your child fall triggers panic in any parent. But I'd comforted her, checked for injuries, kissed her scraped knee, and she'd been playing again within minutes. Dr. Moreau had twisted it into evidence of neglect and emotional problems. There were 6 more observations, each one taking a normal parenting moment and reframing it as evidence of my incompetence. The conclusion of the report was crushing. Based on extensive naturalistic observation and psychological assessment, it is my professional opinion that Mrs. Sienna Caldwell demonstrates significant emotional dysregulation, poor parenting judgment, and behavioral patterns consistent with psychological instability. The minor child Ivy is at risk in her current primary custody arrangement. For the psychological well-being and safety of the child, I strongly recommend full primary physical and legal custody be granted to the father, Mr. Darius Caldwell, who presents as the emotionally stable parent. I recommend Mrs. Caldwell's contact with the minor child be limited to supervised visitation, pending successful completion of psychological treatment. I couldn't breathe. This report, written in professional language with clinical terms and official-looking credentials, painted me as a dangerous, unstable mother who shouldn't be allowed near her own daughter. "This is all lies," I whispered. "Every single observation is twisted. She took normal moments and made them look abusive." "I believe you," Malcolm said quietly. "But here's the problem. Dr. Helena Moreau is a licensed psychologist. Her credentials are legitimate. She's testified in family court before. She sounds credible, professional. And she's claiming these observations were conducted in public places where she had every legal right to be. Who is this woman? Why would she do this? That's what I need to find out. This level of bias, this deliberate distortion. It suggests she has a personal stake in this case. People don't usually go to these lengths unless they have a reason." Malcolm began typing on his computer, searching for information about Dr. Helena Moreau. "She has a practice in the downtown area," he said, reading from her professional website. "Specializes in child and family psychology. Licensed in this state for 6 years. Clean record with the licensing board. No complaints or disciplinary actions. So she's legitimate? Her credentials are legitimate. But that doesn't mean her testimony is truthful. People with real credentials can still lie for the right price. Or for other reasons." He printed out a photo from her website. Professional headshot, woman in her early 30s, attractive, confident smile. I'd never seen her before in my life. "The question is," Malcolm continued, "why would a legitimate psychologist risk her career by giving false testimony? What's her motivation?" I didn't have an answer, but I was about to find out, and the truth would be so much worse than I could have imagined. Malcolm folded his hands on the desk. "Sienna, I'm going to be honest with you. This evidence is damaging. The photos, the credit card statements, the expert testimony. It's all designed to paint a very specific picture of you as an unfit mother and irresponsible person. And right now, we don't have much to counter it with. So what do? We fight. We prepare our own evidence. We document everything. We find witnesses who can testify to your good character, your involvement with Ivy. We build a case that shows the truth. But I don't have money. We'll work out a payment plan. I believe in your case, Sienna. This isn't about money for me. This is about justice. Your husband is trying to destroy you, and I'm not going to let that happen without a fight." For the first time in days, I felt a tiny spark of hope. But I had no idea how much worse things were about to get, or that I was about to be forced to live under the same roof with the man who was actively trying to take everything from me, including my daughter. Living in that house after receiving the divorce papers was like being trapped in a psychological horror film. Darius hadn't moved out. He'd simply relocated to the guest room on the opposite end of the house, and the Cold War began. The house that had already felt cold now felt arctic. We didn't speak except about logistics regarding Ivy. We passed each other in hallways like strangers, except strangers wouldn't carry this much poisonous hatred in the air between them. But the worst part, the truly insidious part, was what Darius started doing with Ivy. He'd been a distant father for years. Work always came first. He'd missed school plays, parent-teacher conferences, birthday parties. He'd never been the one to tuck Ivy in, or help with homework, or just play with her for no reason. But now he became super dad. It started with him coming home from work early, something he hadn't done in over 2 years. He'd walk through the door at 5:30, calling out cheerfully, "Daddy's home." Ivy would run to him, delighted by this sudden attention, and he'd scoop her up, spin her around, ask about her day with exaggerated interest. Then came the gifts. The first was a new bicycle, bright pink with streamers on the handles and a bell. Ivy's old bike worked perfectly fine, but this one was more expensive, shinier. "Wow, Daddy. Thank you," Ivy had squealed. I'd been in the kitchen, feeling my heart sink. I couldn't compete with that. I didn't have money for surprise gifts. Then came designer clothes, a new tablet, expensive toys. Each gift came with the same poisonous message delivered where I could hear it. When you live with Daddy full-time, he'd say casually, you'll get new things all the time. Daddy can take good care of you. He never said it directly, but the implication hung in the air. Unlike Mommy, who can't give you anything. The new tablet was the biggest one. He came home one evening with a large box featuring cartoon princesses. "This is for you, princess," he said to Ivy, pulling out a state-of-the-art tablet. "This is so much better than that old broken one you have. Better camera, tons of games, everything you could want." Ivy's face lit up like Christmas morning. "It's beautiful. Thank you, Daddy." I was folding laundry in the corner of the living room, trying to be invisible, but Darius made sure I heard his next words. "See, princess? Daddy always gives you the best things. Not like some people who just fold clothes all day and can't provide anything for you." The cruelty was casual, delivered with a smile at Ivy and a poisonous glance at me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell Ivy that I'd provided for her every day of her life, that I'd given up my career to raise her, that love wasn't measured in expensive gifts. But I couldn't. If I got emotional, if I yelled, it would prove exactly what Darius and his fake psychologist were claiming, that I was unstable and volatile. So I sat there in silence, folding laundry with trembling hands, letting his poison fill the room. The psychological warfare continued daily. Every aspect of my role as a mother was systematically undermined. If I cooked dinner, Darius would taste it and make a show of disappointment. "Honey, the chicken is a little dry tonight. Daddy will order pizza instead, okay?" If I helped Ivy with her homework, he'd interrupt. "Let me check that." "Oh no, princess, Mommy taught you the wrong method. Here's the right way." If I chose Ivy's outfit for school, he'd suggest something different. "That's nice, but don't you think this dress is prettier?" Mommy doesn't always have the best fashion sense. Every single day, each small comment, each gentle correction, each subtle undermining was a knife cutting away at my authority, my confidence, my role as Ivy's mother. I began to doubt myself. Was I really cooking badly? Were my teaching methods wrong? Did I have terrible fashion sense? Darius was gaslighting me in front of our daughter, and I was starting to believe him. Ivy, caught in the middle, showed signs of confusion. She'd always been a cheerful, secure child. But now, I could see hesitation in her eyes. When I reached for her hand, she'd take it, but sometimes she'd glance at Darius as if seeking permission. At night, when I'd tuck her into bed, she'd hug me tightly, like she was afraid to let go. But other times, after Darius had spent the evening playing games with her or reading her stories, he'd appear in the doorway with a knowing smile. "Say goodnight to Mommy," he'd say. "Daddy will be here tomorrow. Daddy's always here for you now." The implication was clear. Soon, Daddy would be all she had. One evening, after a particularly brutal day of undermining, I couldn't sleep. I walked silently to Ivy's room just to watch her sleep, to reassure myself that my daughter was still there, still mine, at least for now. I opened the door carefully. Ivy was sleeping deeply, her breathing soft and even. The expensive new tablet Darius had given her sat on her desk, screen dark. I moved closer to tuck her blanket in properly. That's when I noticed something strange. Ivy's hand was clutching something under her pillow. Not her usual stuffed rabbit or the doll she sometimes slept with. I gently lifted the edge of the pillow. It was her old tablet, the cheap one with the cracked screen, the one that barely worked anymore. The one I'd told her not to use because the shattered glass might cut her. Why was she keeping this broken thing under her pillow when she had a brand new, expensive tablet right there on her desk? I frowned, confused. Maybe it was just a child's attachment to an old toy, even a broken one. Maybe she felt sentimental about it since it had been her first tablet, a hand-me-down from a cousin. I adjusted her blanket, kissed her forehead softly, and left the room. I had no idea that broken tablet was hiding a secret that would save my life. The real terror escalated a few days later. I was waiting at home after school dismissal time, ready to help Ivy with her homework and start dinner. 3 o'clock came and went. 3:15. 3:30. Ivy hadn't arrived home. I called the school immediately, heart pounding. "Hello, Mrs. Caldwell," the receptionist said cheerfully. "Can I help you?" "Yes, I'm calling about Ivy. She hasn't come home yet. Did something happen? Was there a delay?" "Oh, no delay. Ivy was picked up on time. Her father signed her out about 20 minutes ago." My blood ran cold. "Her father picked her up?" "Yes, Mr. Caldwell. He's on the approved pickup list." "Is there a problem?" "No. No problem. Thank you." I hung up, hands shaking. Darius had taken Ivy without telling me, without asking, without even a text message to let me know. I called him immediately. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. I called again. Same result. And again. An hour passed. 2 hours. I paced the living room like a caged animal, scenarios running through my mind. Had he taken her? Was this it? Was he kidnapping our daughter before the court case even happened? By the time 3 hours had passed, I was on the verge of calling the police. Then I heard it. Darius's car pulling into the driveway. I ran to the front door and threw it open. Ivy came bouncing in, laughing, carrying a large shopping bag with logos from Wonderland Park, the expensive amusement park an hour outside the city. "Mommy, Daddy took me to Wonderland. It was so amazing. We rode the roller coaster 3 times. Behind her, Darius strolled in casually, keys jangling in his hand, a slight smirk on his face. "Where have you been?" I tried to keep my voice calm, but it came out shrill. "You took Ivy without telling me. I've been worried sick for hours. I didn't know where she was." "Relax, Sienna," Darius said coolly. "I'm her father. I have every right to spend time with my daughter. But you should have told me. You should have at least sent a text." "Why? So you could ruin our fun with your drama? So you could call every 5 minutes and stress out Ivy? That's not fair." I was terrified. I didn't know what happened to her. "Maybe if you were a better mother, you wouldn't be so paranoid and anxious all the time." He turned to Ivy, who was watching our exchange with growing discomfort. "Go upstairs and put away your toys, princess. Mommy and Daddy need to talk." Ivy scurried upstairs, and as soon as she was out of sight, Darius's friendly mask dropped completely. He stepped closer to me, and I smelled it immediately. Perfume. A woman's perfume. Soft, floral, expensive. Not anything I owned. Not his cologne. I looked at his shirt. There was a faint smudge of lipstick on his collar, barely visible, but definitely there. "Who is she?" I whispered. Darius followed my gaze to his collar. He didn't flinch. Didn't try to hide it. Instead, he smiled. "Figured it out, did you? There's another woman." "Of course there is. Did you really think I was going to spend the rest of my life with someone as boring and useless as you?" He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "She's everything you're not, Sienna. Successful, intelligent, beautiful, sophisticated. Being with her reminds me what it's like to be with a real woman instead of a pathetic housewife who can't even cook dinner properly." "How long? Does it matter?" "Long enough to know what I've been missing. Long enough to realize what a mistake it was to marry you." "Who is she?" "That's none of your business. But don't worry." His smile widened cruelly. "You'll meet her eventually. Because when I get full custody of Ivy, she's going to be your daughter's new mother. Someone who can actually provide a good role model instead of a depressed, anxious mess." He walked past me toward the stairs, then paused. "Enjoy whatever time you have left with Ivy," he said softly. "Because soon, very soon, she won't even want to call you mom anymore. I'm making sure of that." That night, after the confrontation, I couldn't function. I tried to make dinner, but my hands shook so badly I dropped a plate, and it shattered on the kitchen floor. I stood there staring at the broken pieces, feeling like they represented my life. Ivy found me there and helped me sweep up the glass, her small hands gentle and concerned. "Mommy, are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just clumsy today. Daddy says you haven't been feeling well lately." My heart clenched. "Daddy said that?" Yeah, he says you're sick, and that's why you're sad a lot. He says if I go live with him, you can rest and get better. The manipulation was even deeper than I'd thought. Darius had been telling Ivy that leaving me would help me, that it was an act of kindness. He'd poisoned her against me while making her think she was being a good daughter. I knelt down and looked into Ivy's eyes. Sweetheart, I need you to know something. I'm not sick. I'm just sad because Daddy and I are having problems. But I love you so much. More than anything in the world. Do you believe me? Ivy nodded, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. She'd heard one thing from Darius, another thing from me. She didn't know who to believe anymore. That night, I heard Darius on the phone in the guest room. The walls were thin. I could hear his voice, warm and affectionate in a way he'd never spoken to me in years. No, she doesn't suspect you, he was saying. She's too stupid. Yeah, the trial starts next week. After I get custody, we're out of here. Switzerland like we planned. Don't worry, baby. The kid won't be a problem. A few toys and she'll forget her mother ever existed. I pressed my ear against the wall, tears streaming down my face, listening to my husband plan his future with another woman. A future that included my daughter but not me. The first mediation hearing was a cruel joke. We sat in a small, airless conference room, me and Malcolm on one side, Darius and his expensive lawyer Victor Ashford on the other. A court-appointed mediator tried to find middle ground. Malcolm began calmly. We're not asking for everything. Mrs. Caldwell is willing to negotiate on property division. What she wants, what she's asking for, is custody of her daughter. Shared custody at minimum. Before he could finish, Victor Ashford cut him off with a condescending smile. There's nothing to negotiate, he said sharply. He slammed a thick file onto the table. Our client's position is crystal clear. Mrs. Caldwell has failed spectacularly in this marriage. We have documented proof of her failures. Photographic evidence. Financial evidence. Expert testimony from a licensed child psychologist. All of it proving she's unfit to be a custodial parent. That evidence is manipulated. I started to say, but Victor talked over me. My client is only asking for what's best for his daughter. Full custody, with Mrs. Caldwell receiving supervised visitation, pending her successful completion of psychological treatment. Treatment for what? Malcolm demanded. You're claiming she has mental health issues based on a biased report from a psychologist she never even met. A licensed professional who observed her behavior and found it deeply concerning. Multiple incidents of verbal aggression toward the child. Neglect. Emotional volatility. Victor ticked them off on his fingers. Those observations are distorted. Every parent has moments that look bad out of context. Then explain the state of her home. Victor pulled out the photos. The messy house. The overflowing sink. Explain the reckless spending. He pulled out the credit card statements. Explain why a stay-at-home mother, whose only job is to maintain a household, can't manage basic tasks without having emotional breakdowns. She was sick when those photos were taken, Malcolm argued. And those credit card charges weren't made by her. Prove it, Victor said coldly. Prove she didn't make those purchases. Prove she's not the negligent, unstable person all the evidence suggests she is. The mediator tried to intervene. Gentlemen, let's try to find common ground here. There is no common ground, Victor interrupted. Mrs. Caldwell can either agree to our terms, full custody to Mr. Caldwell, generous visitation for her, and a reasonable division of assets, or we go to trial. And I promise you, he looked directly at me, if we go to trial, I will make sure every embarrassing detail of your failures gets presented in open court. The photos, the spending, the expert testimony, everything. You'll be humiliated. Darius sat beside his lawyer, looking like a victim, his face arranged in an expression of pained sadness. The performance was Oscar-worthy. I just want what's best for my daughter, he said softly. I don't want to hurt Sienna. I just want Ivy to have a stable home. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table over. But Malcolm's hand on my arm stopped me. We're not agreeing to anything, Malcolm said firmly. See you in court. We walked out, the mediation a complete failure. Darius and Victor had no intention of compromising. They wanted total victory, complete annihilation. Stay strong, Sienna, Malcolm said quietly as we left the building. The real fight is just beginning. The first day of trial felt surreal. The courtroom was intimidating, all dark wood and high ceilings. The judge sat elevated above everyone, an older man with silver hair and a stern expression. Darius sat with Victor on the opposite side, looking confident and composed. I sat with Malcolm, feeling like I might throw up at any moment. The trial began with opening statements. Victor Ashford spoke first, his voice theatrical and convincing. He painted a picture of a hard-working husband whose wife had slowly deteriorated into an incompetent, emotionally unstable woman who couldn't care for herself, let alone a child. When Malcolm gave his opening statement, he spoke about my dedication, my sacrifice, my love for Ivy. But even to my own ears, it sounded weak against the concrete evidence Victor had presented. Then came the evidence. Victor methodically presented each piece. The photos of my messy house blown up on large screens for everyone to see. The credit card statements showing thousands in my spending, my financial dependence, my lack of recent employment history. Your Honor, Victor said dramatically, while my client, Mr. Darius Caldwell, worked tirelessly to provide for his family, his wife was at home, wasting his hard-earned money and neglecting their daughter and their home. This isn't speculation. This is documented fact. Each word felt like a hammer blow. I watched the judge taking notes, his expression unreadable. Then came the moment I'd been dreading. The plaintiff calls expert witness Dr. Helena Moreau. The courtroom doors opened. A woman walked in, and my breath caught. She was stunning. Early 30s, professionally dressed in a tailored gray suit. Her hair pulled back in a sleek bun. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who knew exactly how impressive she appeared. She took her oath, sat in the witness box, and began her testimony. And as she spoke, answering Victor's questions, I smelled it. That perfume. The exact same perfume I'd smelled on Darius's shirt that night. My heart stopped. She was the mistress. The psychologist giving expert testimony against me was Darius's lover. Helena's testimony was flawless, devastating, and completely convincing. Dr. Moreau, Victor began, can you describe your observations of Mrs. Caldwell and her daughter? Yes, Helena said, her voice calm and professional. Over a 3-month period, I conducted naturalistic observations in various public settings. What I observed was a consistent pattern of concerning behavior. She detailed each incident: the shopping mall aggression, the park neglect. Each story was told in clinical language that made it sound objective and scientific. And what were your professional conclusions? Victor asked. Based on my observations and my training as a licensed child psychologist, it's my opinion that Mrs. Caldwell demonstrates significant emotional dysregulation. Her parenting style is inconsistent, volatile, and potentially harmful to the child's psychological development. Are you saying the child is at risk? Yes. I believe Ivy would benefit significantly from a more stable primary custodial environment. And in your professional opinion, which parent provides that stability? Mr. Darius Caldwell. In my observations, when he was present, the child appeared more secure, relaxed, and happy. It was all lies. Expertly delivered, professionally packaged lies. But lies nonetheless. When Malcolm cross-examined her, he tried to poke holes in her testimony. Dr. Moreau, isn't it unusual to make a custody recommendation based solely on distant observations, without ever actually speaking to the parent in question? Helena smiled slightly. On the contrary, naturalistic observation is considered the gold standard in behavioral assessment. When subjects are aware they're being evaluated, they modify their behavior. Observing people in their natural environment provides the most accurate data. But you made serious allegations. Aggression, neglect, emotional instability. Based on a handful of brief observations. I observed over a dozen separate incidents over 3 months. That's more than sufficient for a professional assessment. And you're being paid for this testimony, correct? I'm being compensated for my professional time and expertise, yes. That's standard practice. How much are you being paid? Helena named a substantial sum, but she delivered it confidently, making it sound perfectly reasonable for expert testimony. Does the amount you're being paid affect your objectivity? Absolutely not. My conclusions are based on empirical observation and professional judgment, not on compensation. Malcolm tried several more angles, but Helena deflected every question with practiced ease. She'd been prepared for this. She had answers for everything. The judge listened intently, taking notes. And I could see it on his face. He found her credible. When Helena stepped down from the witness stand, she walked past our table. Our eyes met for just a second, and I saw something flicker across her face. Not guilt. Triumph. She thought she'd won. The trial adjourned for the day. As we left the courtroom, I felt destroyed. Helena's testimony had been too powerful, too convincing. In the courthouse lobby, I leaned against a wall, trying not to cry in public. We lost, I whispered to Malcolm. She was perfect. She sounded so professional, so credible. The judge believed every word. Malcolm was silent for a long moment, watching Darius and Victor leave together, heads close in conversation. And behind them, walking separately but in the same direction, was Helena. Darius turned his head slightly, made brief eye contact with Helena. It was barely a second, but there was something in that glance. Something intimate. Did you see that? Malcolm said quietly. See what? The way he looked at her. And the way she looked at him. Malcolm's eyes narrowed. That's not how a professional looks at a client. That's something else. What are you saying? I'm saying something's wrong here. Very wrong. The way she testified, the level of detail in her observations, the bias in her conclusions. This feels personal, not professional. But her credentials are real. You checked. Her credentials are real. But that doesn't mean she's being truthful. Malcolm turned to me. Sienna, I need to dig deeper into Dr. Helena Moreau. Find out who she really is. Because I don't think she's just some psychologist Darius hired. I think there's more to this story. Over the next few days, Malcolm investigated while I prepared for my own testimony. He hired a private investigator to follow Helena, to dig into her background, to find any connection to Darius beyond the professional relationship she claimed. But Helena was careful. Too careful. The investigator found nothing. No shared social circles. No common friends. No financial connections beyond the payment for her expert testimony. Either she was exactly what she claimed to be, a legitimate psychologist Darius had hired to lie for money, which would be nearly impossible to prove, or she'd covered her tracks expertly. I'm sorry, Sienna, Malcolm said when he reported back. I can't find anything we can use. Her credentials check out. Her testimony, as biased as it is, can't be proven false without concrete evidence. So we just accept it? We just let her lies stand? No. We fight back the only way we can. You testify. You tell your side of the story. You explain every photo, every charge, every moment Helena twisted. And you stay calm. No matter what Victor throws at you, no matter how hard he pushes, you cannot lose your temper. I can't promise that. You have to. Because if you break down, if you get emotional, if you yell or cry hysterically, you'll prove exactly what Helena said about you. That you're unstable. That you're volatile. That you're unfit. I nodded, but my hands were shaking. A few days later, it was my turn to take the witness stand. After being sworn in, Malcolm began with gentle questions. He guided me through my story. How I'd met Darius. How I'd given up my career to raise Ivy. How I'd dedicated myself to our family. I explained the photos. Those were taken when I had a high fever of 103. I was bedridden. Darius knew I was too sick to clean, and he photographed the mess deliberately. I explained the credit cards. It was a supplemental card in my name, but Darius used it frequently. He told me his main card was maxed out. I trusted him. I didn't know he was building a case against me. I explained my life. Every early morning. Every meal prepared. Every load of laundry. Every school event attended. Every bedtime story read. I'm not a perfect mother, I said, my voice shaking with emotion. But I love my daughter. I have done everything I can for her. Everything. Some people in the gallery looked sympathetic. Some whispered to each other. The judge took notes, his expression still unreadable. Then Victor Ashford stood for cross-examination. And the attack began. Mrs. Caldwell, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. You claim your husband set you up. That he deliberately staged these photos. That he used your credit card without your knowledge. That everything is his fault. Is that your testimony? I didn't say everything is his fault. I said, it sounds like you're saying you have no responsibility for anything. That you're a perfect victim. Is that accurate? No, that's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? Are you responsible for the state of your home in those photos or not? I was sick. I couldn't physically. But you have no medical records proving you were sick. No doctor's visit. No prescription. Just your word. I didn't think I needed to document having the flu. So we're expected to simply believe you? Despite photographic evidence to the contrary. Those photos are misleading. Are they? Or are they accurate representations of your typical home environment? No. My home is usually very clean. I take pride in. Victor pulled out another photo, one I hadn't seen before. He held it up for everyone to see. Your Honor, Exhibit P47. This photograph was taken just 2 weeks ago. The photo showed our kitchen again. This time there was a small pile of dishes in the sink, maybe 3 or 4 plates and some cups. Nothing terrible. But Victor made it sound damning. Even now, during the trial, when you know you're being evaluated, you still can't maintain a clean kitchen? Those are from breakfast that morning. I was planning to wash them after taking Ivy to school. Planning to, but hadn't done it yet. Because consistently maintaining a home is difficult for you, isn't it? That's not fair. Every parent has dishes in the sink sometimes. Every parent isn't in court fighting for custody based on claims of being an excellent homemaker. He moved to the next attack. The credit cards. Mrs. Caldwell, you say your husband used your supplemental credit card. Did you ever report these charges as fraudulent? No, because I trusted him. You never once looked at a credit card statement and questioned a charge. He managed all the finances. You signed your name to those credit card accounts, correct? Yes, but. So legally, you're responsible for the charges on a card in your name? Technically, yes, but the reality is. Yes or no, Mrs. Caldwell? Are you legally responsible for charges on a card bearing your name? Yes. Thank you. No further questions on that point. He smiled, having trapped me into agreeing I was financially responsible for charges I didn't make. Then he moved in for the kill. He pulled out a large printed photograph and held it up for the judge and the entire courtroom to see. My heart sank. I knew this photo. I'd never seen it before, but I knew exactly when it had been taken. It was a photo of me in our bedroom. My hair was wild, disheveled. My face was contorted, mid-scream, eyes red, cheeks streaked with tears. I looked completely unhinged. Mrs. Caldwell, can you explain this photograph? My mouth went dry. When was that taken? Approximately 2 weeks before you received the divorce papers. Can you explain your appearance and behavior? I remembered that night. Every horrible detail. Darius had just spent an hour telling me I was worthless. I said, my voice shaking. He told me I was a burden, that I was useless as a wife and a mother. He systematically tore apart everything I do, everything I am. I was crying, yes. I was upset. Any person would be upset after being verbally abused for an hour. So you admit you were hysterical? I was upset. Is this the face of emotional stability, Mrs. Caldwell? He held the photo higher. Is this what a competent, stable parent looks like? You don't understand. He provoked that reaction. Ah, so it's his fault you lost control of your emotions? He was cruel. He said horrible things. And instead of responding calmly, rationally, like an adult, you had a breakdown. A breakdown that was photographed. A breakdown that supports everything Dr. Moreau testified about your emotional volatility. That's not fair. My voice was rising. I could feel myself losing control. He set me up. He deliberately provoked me, so he could take that photo. You're raising your voice right now, Mrs. Caldwell. In a courtroom. In front of a judge. Just like you did at home. Because you're twisting everything. Am I? Or are you simply demonstrating exactly what we've been saying about you? That you're emotionally unstable? That you can't control your reactions? That you're not fit to be a primary custodial parent? No, I was standing now, tears streaming down my face. He's a liar. He's been setting me up for months. He emptied our bank accounts. He stole my jewelry. He's having an affair. This whole thing is a lie. Enough. The judge's gavel struck hard. Mrs. Caldwell, sit down. Control yourself. I collapsed back into the witness chair, sobbing. My hands were shaking. I'd done exactly what I'd promised Malcolm I wouldn't do. I'd lost control. I'd proven their case. I looked out at the courtroom through my tears. Darius sat there with his head slightly bowed, his face arranged in an expression of pained sadness, like he was heartbroken to see his wife falling apart. Victor Ashford looked satisfied, almost smug. The judge was shaking his head slowly, his expression clear. He'd made up his mind. Malcolm tried to salvage things during redirect, but the damage was done. I'd looked exactly like the unstable, hysterical woman they'd painted me as. When I stepped down from the witness stand, my legs barely held me. Malcolm caught my arm, steadied me. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry. I ruined everything. That night was the longest of my life. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything except that I was about to lose Ivy." The final hearing was scheduled for the next morning. The judge would make his ruling. I went into Ivy's room around midnight. She was sleeping peacefully, clutching that old broken tablet under her pillow like always. I sat on the edge of her bed and stroked her hair, memorizing the feel of it. This might be one of the last times I got to do this. Once Darius got full custody, I'd be lucky to see her once a week under supervision. "Ivy," I whispered, even though she was asleep. "I'm so sorry. I tried so hard. I love you so much. I hope someday you'll understand that everything I did was for you." Ivy stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Mommy." "She'll go back to sleep, sweetheart." She sat up slightly, rubbing her eyes. "Mommy, are you crying?" "I'm okay. I just wanted to tell you something." My voice broke. "No matter what happens tomorrow, no matter where you live or who you're with, I want you to know that Mommy loves you more than anything in this entire world. You're my whole heart, Ivy. Always." Ivy seemed to sense something was wrong. She threw her arms around my neck and held tight. "I love you too, Mommy. So much." We stayed like that for a long time, holding each other. When I finally tucked her back in and kissed her forehead, I noticed the broken tablet again, its cracked screen catching a sliver of moonlight from the window. "Why do you still keep that old thing, sweetheart?" I asked, more to make conversation than anything else. Ivy hugged the tablet closer. "It's special." "Special how?" She paused, then whispered sleepily. "It has a secret. But it's okay, Mommy. Everything's going to be okay." I had no idea what she meant. I thought she was just being a tired 7-year-old, saying things that didn't quite make sense. I kissed her one more time and left, closing the door softly behind me. I had no idea that broken tablet contained the evidence that would save everything. That my daughter had been 3 steps ahead of everyone this entire time. That tomorrow, in that courtroom, everything was about to change. The final hearing arrived like an execution date. I dressed carefully that morning, though my hands shook so badly I could barely button my blouse. Darius was already gone when I came downstairs. He'd left early, probably to strategize with Victor Ashford one last time before the judge delivered the verdict. I'd arranged for a neighbor to take Ivy to school. I couldn't bear to drop her off, couldn't bear to say goodbye in case it was the last morning I'd have with her as her real mother. "Mommy, where are you going?" Ivy had asked when I explained the neighbor would take her. I have something important to do, sweetheart. I'll see you later. Promise. The word had nearly broken me. Promise. Malcolm picked me up outside the house. We drove to the courthouse in silence. There was nothing left to say. We both knew how this was going to end. The courtroom felt colder than ever when we entered. Darius was already seated with Victor, both of them looking refreshed and confident. Victor was actually smiling, making small talk with the court clerk like this was just another day at the office. In the gallery, I saw Helena. She'd come to watch her victory. She wore a cream-colored dress and sat with perfect posture, her hands folded in her lap, looking every bit the professional expert witness whose testimony had destroyed me. When our eyes met, she gave me a small, almost imperceptible smile, the smile of someone who'd won. I looked away, feeling sick. The judge entered. We all rose, then sat again. The formality of it all felt surreal, like I was watching this happen to someone else. In the matter of Caldwell versus Caldwell, the judge began, his voice formal and detached. The court has reviewed all submitted evidence, heard all testimony, and carefully considered the best interests of the minor child. This was it. This was the moment. My hands gripped the edge of the table, so tightly my knuckles turned white. The court notes, the judge continued, looking down at his notes, that the plaintiff, Mr. Darius Caldwell, has presented substantial evidence in support of his petition. Photographic evidence demonstrating household neglect, financial records showing concerning spending patterns, and most significantly, expert testimony from a licensed child psychologist regarding the defendant's emotional stability and parenting capacity. Each sentence felt like a knife sliding between my ribs. Victor Ashford sat back in his chair, relaxed. Darius kept his expression neutral, but I could see the victory in his eyes. The court also notes, the judge said, that Mrs. Caldwell's own testimony unfortunately supported many of the concerns raised. Her emotional outburst during cross-examination demonstrated. Stop. The voice was small but clear. High-pitched. A child's voice. Everyone froze. I turned my head in disbelief, along with everyone else in the courtroom. In the doorway at the back of the room stood Ivy. She was alone, still in her school uniform, her backpack on her shoulders. Her small hands clutched something against her chest. The entire courtroom went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Darius reacted first. His face went from shock to absolute terror in the span of a heartbeat. He shot to his feet. Ivy, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in school. His voice came out too loud, too panicked. Get out of here right now. Ivy flinched at his tone but didn't move. Victor Ashford stood as well, addressing the judge. Your Honor, this is highly inappropriate. This is a closed proceeding. A minor child shouldn't be here. I request the court have security remove. Let her speak, the judge interrupted, his eyes fixed on Ivy with sudden intense interest. Your Honor, I must protest, Victor tried again. I said let her speak. The judge's voice was firm. Bailiff, allow the child to approach. Darius looked like he might be sick. Ivy, princess, you need to leave. Right now. This isn't a place for. Mr. Caldwell, sit down and be silent, the judge commanded. Ivy walked down the center aisle, her small footsteps echoing loudly in the silent room. As she passed Darius's table, he reached out as if to grab her, but the bailiff stepped forward, blocking him. Ivy didn't look at her father. She didn't look at me. Even though I was crying, my hand pressed to my mouth in shock. She walked straight to the center of the room and looked up at the judge. Your Honor, she said, her voice trembling but clear. I'm sorry for interrupting, but I need to show you something. The judge leaned forward. It's all right, sweetheart. What's your name? Ivy. Ivy Caldwell. I'm 7 years old. Hello, Ivy. How did you get here? My teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, drove me. I told her it was an emergency. I told her my mommy needed me. The judge's expression softened slightly. And what did you want to show me? Ivy pulled something from under her arm. The broken tablet. The one with the cracked screen that she'd been hiding under her pillow. This, she said, holding it up. I have something on here. Something about my daddy and Miss Helena. Something my mommy doesn't know about." Those words hung in the air like electricity. Darius went pale. "Ivy, no. Put that away right now. That's private." "Silence, Mr. Caldwell." The judge's voice cracked like thunder. His entire demeanor had changed. He could sense something big was happening, something that might unravel everything he'd heard over the past week. In the gallery, Helena had gone completely rigid. Her face, previously calm and composed, now showed pure panic. Victor Ashford sensed disaster. "Your Honor, I object in the strongest possible terms. Any recording made by a child without consent would be inadmissible evidence. This is clearly an invasion of privacy, potentially illegal." "Your objection is noted and overruled," the judge said sharply. "This child has come here on her own, interrupting a custody hearing about her own future. I want to know what she has to say." He looked at Ivy gently. "Sweetheart, what's on that tablet?" "A video," Ivy said quietly, "of Daddy and Miss Helena. In our house. Talking about Mommy." The courtroom erupted. People in the gallery started whispering urgently. Victor was on his feet again, shouting objections. Darius looked like he was about to pass out. Malcolm grabbed my arm, his eyes wide with sudden understanding. "Oh my God," he whispered. The judge banged his gavel hard. "Order. Everyone sit down and be quiet." He looked at the court clerk. "Help this child connect that device to the courtroom monitors. Now." "Your Honor, please." Victor tried one more time, desperation creeping into his voice. "Mr. Ashford, if you interrupt again, I will hold you in contempt. Sit down." Victor sat, but his face had gone ashen. He turned to look at Darius with an expression that said, "You never told me about this." The clerk approached Ivy carefully and took the broken tablet. Despite its cracked screen, it still worked. He found the right cable, and within moments, the large monitors on the courtroom walls flickered to life, showing the tablet's home screen. Darius was gripping the edge of the table so hard I thought it might crack. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no. Daddy." Ivy looked at him, confused by his reaction. "I thought you said Mommy should know the truth?" That innocent question silenced him completely. Ivy pointed at the screen. "That one. The video from March 18th. The clerk clicked on it. A video thumbnail appeared, time-stamped from several weeks ago. "Play it," the judge ordered. Ivy pressed the play button. The video started. The quality wasn't perfect, shot from a low angle, slightly shaky, as if filmed by small hands hiding behind something. But the audio was crystal clear. The setting was immediately recognizable. Our living room. The familiar couch, the large potted plant in the corner, the painting Darius had bought on a business trip to Paris. The camera angle suggested Ivy had hidden behind that large plant pot, one of her favorite spots during hide-and-seek games. Then two figures walked into frame, Darius and Helena. But this wasn't professional Helena from the courtroom. This Helena wore comfortable loungewear, yoga pants, and a soft sweater. Her hair was down, falling loosely around her shoulders. She looked relaxed, at home. Darius wrapped his arms around her from behind, kissing her neck affectionately. The entire courtroom gasped in unison. Several people in the gallery made shocked noises. I couldn't breathe. Even though I'd suspected, even though I'd known about the affair, seeing them together in my home on video, in front of everyone, it was devastating. But it was about to get so much worse. Helena turned in Darius's arms, smiling. "Are you sure this plan is going to work? Your wife seems so clueless." Darius laughed, actually laughed. "She is clueless. Completely. And submissive. Perfect combination. I've been setting this up for months, baby. All the money's already been transferred to your account offshore." My blood turned to ice. "Your account. Their shared account. The mistress had my family's money. All of it." Helena's voice was eager. "Almost $1 million. Every dollar from our joint account, plus liquidating some investments she didn't even know existed. By the time the divorce is final, there'll be nothing left in my name for her to claim." Helena kissed him. "You're brilliant. But what about the custody battle? Are you absolutely sure you'll win? Baby, it's guaranteed. I've been documenting her failures for 6 months. The photos, the credit card trail, everything. And with your testimony. He pulled her closer. You were perfect in that courtroom. So professional. So credible. The judge believed every word. I was worried I might not be convincing enough. You were amazing. An Oscar-worthy performance. That fake psychological evaluation, the observations you supposedly made, all of it. Pure genius. The courtroom was completely silent now except for the video audio and my suppressed sobbing. Every person in that room was frozen in shock. Victor Ashford had his head in his hands. His entire career was imploding in real time. The judge's face was red with barely controlled fury. Darius was making desperate attempts to stand, to run to the clerk's table and stop the video. But the bailiff had moved to block him, one hand on his service weapon. Sit down, Mr. Caldwell, the bailiff warned. Helena in the gallery was crying now, mascara running down her face. She'd half risen from her seat, looking frantically toward the exit. But the video wasn't finished. Helena's voice. What about Ivy, though? She's so attached to her mother. Won't that be a problem? This was the moment that destroyed me completely. I held my breath, watching the screen, waiting for Darius's response. He shrugged, utterly casual. The kid? Please. She's 7. Give her a new tablet, some toys. Take her to a few amusement parks. She'll forget her mother exists within a month. Kids are easy to manipulate. You'll be her new mom. Smarter, more successful, and way more attractive than that pathetic failure. He kissed Helena deeply, both of them laughing. The cruelty of those words, the casual dismissal of our daughter's love for me, the calculated plan to replace me entirely. It was almost too much to bear. But there was more. Helena pulled back slightly. I'm still a little worried about the trial. What if her lawyer finds something? What if they figure out my testimony was biased? Impossible, Darius said confidently. I already set up the final piece. Remember that night I provoked her? When I spent an hour telling her she was worthless and useless. You got video of that? Better. I got photos of her completely losing it. Crying, screaming, looking totally unstable. Attorney Ashford is going to use those photos during her testimony. And I'll make sure to insult her again on the stand if she testifies. I know exactly which buttons to push. She'll explode. She'll scream and cry in front of the judge, and it'll prove everything you said about her in your testimony. You're sure she'll break down? Guaranteed. She's weak. Always has been. Once she gets emotional, once the judge sees her lose control, game over. Your psychological evaluation will look perfectly accurate. The judge will see for himself that she's an unstable, hysterical woman who can't control her emotions. No judge will give custody to someone like that. On the video, they clinked wine glasses together, toasting their plan. Toasting my destruction. To our future, Helena said. To Switzerland, Darius replied. Far away from all this. New life, new family. Just us and Ivy, once I sell that house and get rid of Sienna permanently. They kissed again, celebrating. The video ended. The screen went black. The courtroom remained silent for several long seconds. The only sounds were my sobbing and Darius's heavy, panicked breathing. Then chaos. Arrest that woman, someone in the gallery shouted, pointing at Helena. She's a fraud. Helena bolted from her seat, running toward the back exit. But she'd forgotten the judge had ordered all exits secured. A female bailiff intercepted her before she'd gone 3 steps. Helena collapsed to the floor, all her professional composure shattered, crying hysterically. Exactly the way she'd described me in her false testimony. Karma had arrived with brutal efficiency. The judge's gavel came down like a gunshot. Once, twice, 3 times. Order. Order in this court. Slowly, the chaos subsided. Everyone sat back down except Helena, who was being restrained by the bailiff near the back door, and Darius, who was still standing, looking like a cornered animal. The judge's face was crimson with rage. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet but absolutely terrifying. "Mr. Caldwell, sit down." Darius sat, his legs apparently no longer able to hold him. The judge looked at Helena being held near the back. "Bring her forward. Put her in the witness stand." The bailiff dragged the sobbing Helena to the front of the courtroom and deposited her in the witness box, the same place where she'd given her false testimony days before. Now it felt like a defendant's chair. The judge turned to Victor Ashford. "Mr. Ashford, did you know about any of this?" Victor looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past 10 minutes. "No, Your Honor. I swear. I had no knowledge of any affair or conspiracy. I was given evidence by my client, and I presented it in good faith." "Good faith?" The judge's voice rose. "You presented fabricated evidence. You used a manipulated psychological evaluation to mislead this court. You provoked a witness during testimony specifically to make her appear unstable." "I didn't know the evaluation was false, Your Honor. I was told Dr. Moreau was a licensed professional." "She is a licensed professional," the judge roared, "which makes her crimes even worse. She used her credentials, her professional standing, to commit perjury and help destroy a woman's life." He turned his fury on Helena, who was crumpled in the witness box. "Miss Moreau, you sat in that very chair days ago and testified under oath. You presented yourself as an objective expert witness. You gave detailed testimony about observations you supposedly made, about professional conclusions based on scientific assessment. And now we discover it was all a lie. A performance designed to steal a child from her mother so you could play house with her father." Helena couldn't speak. She just cried, her face buried in her hands. The judge looked at Darius next, and his expression was pure contempt. "Mr. Caldwell, you came into my courtroom claiming to be a concerned father. You accused your wife of being a failed mother, an unstable woman, an irresponsible person. You demanded full custody of your daughter. You demanded all marital assets. You painted yourself as the victim of a negligent spouse." Darius opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "But that video," the judge continued, his voice dropping to something even more dangerous than shouting, "that video shows exactly who you are. A manipulator, a thief, a liar. You systematically abused your wife. You deliberately provoked her, then photographed her distress as evidence against her. You stole money from joint accounts and transferred it to your mistress. You conspired with a licensed professional to give false testimony. You manipulated evidence. You attempted to manipulate this court." The judge stood, something I'd never seen a judge do during a proceeding. "Worst of all," he said, his voice shaking with rage, "you planned to take a child from her mother using lies, manipulation, and fraud. You were going to steal that little girl's relationship with her mother based on fabricated evidence. And according to your own words on that video, you saw your daughter as nothing more than a possession to be manipulated with toys and treats until she forgot the woman who gave birth to her and raised her." Darius tried to speak. "Your Honor, I can explain." "Be silent. I don't want to hear another word from you." The judge picked up Darius's lawsuit petition and held it up, then let it fall, pages scattering across his bench. "This entire petition is garbage. Every accusation, every claim, every demand, all of it based on lies, manipulation, and fraud." He looked at me finally, his expression softening just slightly. "Mrs. Caldwell, this court owes you an apology. You were subjected to a systematic campaign of abuse and character assassination. You were provoked deliberately to appear unstable. You were financially sabotaged. You were betrayed in the worst possible way. And this court almost fell for it." Tears were streaming down my face. I couldn't speak. The judge sat back down and began making notes. "Here is the court's ruling. First, the divorce petition filed by Mr. Darius Caldwell is dismissed in its entirety with prejudice. Every accusation, every demand, all of it is thrown out as fraudulent." The gavel struck. Second, the court grants Mrs. Sienna Caldwell's counterpetition for divorce on the grounds of adultery, fraud, and emotional abuse. The divorce is granted immediately. Another strike of the gavel. Third, full physical and legal custody of the minor child Ivy Caldwell is hereby granted unconditionally to her mother, Mrs. Sienna Caldwell. Mr. Darius Caldwell's parental rights are suspended pending criminal proceedings. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Full custody. Unconditional. Fourth, all marital assets are hereby awarded to Mrs. Sienna Caldwell, including the marital home, all vehicles, all investment accounts, and all other properties. Additionally, the court orders an immediate freeze on all financial accounts belonging to Mr. Darius Caldwell and Miss Helena Moreau, pending a full forensic investigation into the theft of marital funds. Your Honor, Victor tried to object, but the judge silenced him with a look. Fifth, the court orders an investigation by the State Licensing Board into Miss Helena Moreau's professional conduct. Her psychology license is to be suspended immediately pending the outcome of that investigation. Helena let out a wail of despair. Her career was over. And sixth, the judge said, his voice now hard as steel, based on the evidence presented in this courtroom today, specifically the video recording showing clear admission of conspiracy to commit fraud, perjury, theft, and obstruction of justice, I hereby order the immediate arrest of Mr. Darius Caldwell and Miss Helena Moreau. He banged the gavel one final time. Bailiffs, take them into custody. The courtroom erupted again, but this time with a different energy. Shock, relief, justice. Two bailiffs approached Darius. He tried to stand, tried to back away, but there was nowhere to go. They handcuffed him as he sputtered protests. This isn't fair. That recording was made without my consent. It's illegal. You can't use it. It was made by your daughter in her own home, the judge said coldly. It's perfectly legal. And even if it weren't, I would have found another way to pursue the truth. Your own words convicted you, Mr. Caldwell. Take him away. Darius was led past me in handcuffs. The man who'd walked into this courthouse a week ago with confidence and arrogance was now leaving in shackles. He didn't look at me. Couldn't look at me. Helena was handcuffed next. She was still crying, mascara running down her face, looking nothing like the polished professional who'd testified days ago. She looked exactly like the description she'd used against me. Emotionally unstable, volatile, hysterical. As the bailiffs escorted them both out, the judge looked at Victor Ashford. Mr. Ashford, the State Bar Association will be receiving a full report about your conduct in this case. You presented fabricated evidence. You deliberately provoked a witness. You participated, whether knowingly or negligently, in a conspiracy to defraud this court. I strongly suggest you retain your own attorney. Victor nodded miserably. His reputation was destroyed. Even if he'd been ignorant of the conspiracy, his career was over. Finally, the judge looked at Ivy, who'd been standing quietly near the clerk's table through all of this, watching everything with wide eyes. Young lady, the judge said gently, come here, please. Ivy walked forward slowly. What you did today was very brave, he said. You stopped a terrible injustice. You saved your mother. Do you understand that? Ivy nodded. How did you know to record that video? Ivy's voice was small but clear. I didn't like Miss Helena. She pretended to be nice to Mommy, but when Mommy wasn't looking, she was mean. And I saw Daddy with her one night when he said he was working late. I hid behind the plant and used my old tablet to record. Mommy always told me if bad people are doing bad things, you need proof. The judge smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him. Your mother taught you well. You're a very smart, very brave little girl. He looked at me. Mrs. Caldwell, you clearly did an excellent job raising your daughter. The evidence of your fitness as a mother is standing right here. This child has more courage and integrity than most adults I encounter. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I stood up, and Ivy ran to me. I dropped to my knees and caught her, holding her so tightly, crying into her small shoulder. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you, Mommy, Ivy said. I couldn't let Daddy take you away from me. We stayed like that for a long time while the courtroom slowly emptied, while Malcolm gathered papers and shook hands with the judge. while the reality of what had just happened slowly sank in. I'd won. I'd been saved. And my 7-year-old daughter had been the one to save me. The aftermath moved quickly. Within days, a forensic investigation traced nearly $1 million that Darius had transferred to offshore accounts in Helena's name. All of it was seized and returned to me. Darius was charged with multiple felonies: fraud, perjury, theft, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Given the overwhelming video evidence, he accepted a plea deal: 12 years in prison. Helena faced similar charges, plus professional misconduct. She was convicted and sentenced to 8 years. Her psychology license was permanently revoked by the state board. The career she'd built was destroyed completely. Victor Ashford was disbarred by the state ethics committee and faced civil lawsuits from multiple clients whose cases had been affected by the scandal. He never practiced law again. 3 months later, Ivy and I moved into a new apartment. Not a big house this time. A modest, cozy 3-bedroom in a good neighborhood with a park nearby. The house where Darius had tormented me sold quickly. With the proceeds, plus the recovered stolen money, I had enough to start completely fresh. I began a small catering business from home, using the cooking skills Darius had always mocked. Word spread quickly, and within weeks I was turning away orders. I was busy, exhausted sometimes, but happy. Genuinely happy. Independent. One sunny afternoon, I sat on a park bench watching Ivy on the playground. She was laughing with other children, running and playing without a care in the world. "Mommy," she called out. "Watch me." She climbed to the top of the jungle gym and waved. "I see you, sweetheart. Be careful." After a while, she ran over and sat beside me, slightly out of breath. "Can I ask you something, Ivy?" "What?" "The video. That video you made. Why did you do it? Why did you record Daddy and Miss Helena?" Ivy thought for a moment, her small face serious. "I didn't like Miss Helena from the start. Remember that day at the mall when you went to the bathroom?" "Yes. She told Daddy you were taking too long. She was mean about it. And at the park, she saw me playing, but she told Daddy you weren't watching me. But you were, Mommy. You were watching me the whole time. So I knew she was lying." My heart swelled. My observant little girl. "And that night," Ivy continued, "Daddy said he was working late. But I heard his car come home. I wanted to show him my drawing from school. But when I came downstairs, I saw him with Miss Helena. He was hugging her and kissing her. I got scared, so I hid behind the plant. And you recorded them?" I remembered what you told me. You said if bad people are doing bad things, you need proof. So I used my old tablet to record. I kept it hidden because in the video, Daddy said Mommy shouldn't know. So I thought it was a big secret. A child's pure logic. She'd kept the secret because her father had said I shouldn't know. But why did you finally show it? Why bring it to court? Tears filled Ivy's eyes. Because Daddy and Miss Helena said you were bad. They said you couldn't take care of me. But that's not true. You're the best mommy. You make me breakfast every day. You help me with homework. You tuck me in every night. You love me. She threw her arms around me. I couldn't let them take you away from me, Mommy. So I asked Mrs. Rodriguez to drive me to the courthouse. I knew you needed help. I held her tight, crying happy tears. You saved me, Ivy. You saved both of us. Are you happy now, Mommy? I looked around at our new life. The modest apartment. The small business I was building. The freedom. The peace. And most importantly, my daughter, safe in my arms. Yes, sweetheart. I'm happy now. As we sat together in the sunshine, I thought about that broken tablet. The thing everyone had dismissed as worthless. The cracked screen. The damaged casing. But that broken thing had held the truth all along. Just like me. Darius had tried to paint me as broken, damaged, worthless. He'd tried to convince everyone, including me, that I was a failure. But the truth had been there all along. I wasn't broken. I wasn't a failure. I was a mother who loved her daughter. A woman who'd survived abuse. A person who deserved better. And the daughter Darius had claimed I'd failed to raise properly? She'd turned out to be brilliant. Observant. strategic, brave enough to walk into a courtroom alone and deliver justice. I hadn't failed as a mother. I'd raised a hero. That broken tablet taught me something profound. The things the world dismisses as damaged, worthless, or insignificant often hold the most value. The overlooked, the underestimated, the dismissed. Sometimes the smallest, quietest voices change everything. Ivy and I started our new life together. Just the two of us. Our little apartment filled with laughter instead of tension, with love instead of fear, with hope instead of despair. Every night, I'd tuck Ivy into bed and see that old broken tablet sitting on her desk. Not hidden anymore. Displayed proudly. It wasn't trash. It was a trophy. A reminder that truth finds a way, that love prevails, that the smallest among us can topple giants. And most importantly, it reminded me that I'd never actually been broken at all. I'd just been bent. And now, finally, I could stand up straight again. Together, Ivy and I built something beautiful from the wreckage Darius had left behind. We built a life filled with genuine joy, honest communication, and unshakable love. The world had tried to tell me I was nothing. My husband had tried to destroy me. His mistress had tried to erase me. The legal system had almost believed their lies. But one 7-year-old girl with a broken tablet proved them all wrong. And in the end, that was all the proof I needed that I'd done something right, that I'd succeeded where it mattered most. I'd raised a child who knew the difference between truth and lies, who had the courage to stand up for what was right, who loved her mother enough to fight for her. That's not failure. That's everything.